Welcome to Melanin Combos, a sisterhood of mom friends having relatable and unorthodox conversations while holding space for each other and amplifying Black voices. Hi, and welcome to Melanin Combos. I'm Nikita, and today we're going to talk about generational patterns. What are they? How do we chart a new path? How do we do something different than what we've been taught or even what we are currently doing right now? So first thing first, what is a generational pattern? How are we defining that? So I am going to define that as something that we have done throughout the generation, whether that is a parenting model, whether that is a way that we interact with finances, whether that is how we relate with friends and other family members, how we keep secrets, how we relate with children. So what I mean by that is how moms relate to sons versus daughters. Those are all things that I would consider a generational pattern. They're things that we do and we continue to do them because it's just been passed down from generation to generation. We don't always understand and know why we do these things. And there are roots to these things and that we are experiencing, but we just do them because it's what we do. And I think a lot of us would say, oh yeah, that's like a Black way of doing things. We'll coin that and say like, oh, that's Black or that's white or whatever. We'll coin things as a way of doing things, not realizing that it's just something that's been passed down from generation to generation. Okay. So I think for me, I will share like about 3 generational patterns that I am actively trying to break and do differently as it pertains to my relationship with my child. The first one would be not apologizing. I think for a lot of us as millennials, we have experienced our parents not apologizing to us when they've done something wrong. And I am aware of how that positions parents and how that could be harmful, right? When you are never apologized to, when a parent doesn't acknowledge that they've done something wrong, I think it is harmful for that child, right? Because it puts the parent in a position of like superhero or ultimate authority. And I do think that a lot of us as parents and a lot of us as children would have appreciated our parents being human to us, right? So admitting that they were wrong, admitting a mistake, lets us know as children that our parents are human, that they do make mistakes and that they can repair and they can apologize and they can come back and say, you know what? I was wrong for yelling. I was wrong for treating you that way. I shouldn't have done that. And let's figure out how we can do this differently. So that is definitely one of my number one generational patterns, not being afraid to apologize to my child. My next one would be not matching my child's energy. Like, me and my son are not going toe to toe. Like, we're not going at it because he is on 10, so that means I'm going to be on 10 too. Like, it's not necessary. And I think a lot of times when we get into arguments, I don't know if you remember like getting to fights with your parents, and it is a whole thing, like whether it's like screaming and yelling, or some of us even got into like fist fights with our parents, or just it not being a productive environment, not being a place where growth can happen and reconciliation can happen. It just not being healthy. And I think me choosing not to match my child's energy says, 1, I'm going to maintain my calm. I'm going to be the regulated adult and person in the room. And instead of me joining your chaos, I'm going to pull you into my calm. And I think that is the goal. I am modeling for my son what it means to be regulated and what it means to use skills to regulate his feelings. And what better way of doing that is when we are in a heated situation. What better way for me to model that for him than me practicing being calm? And obviously, there will be situations
where that won't happen. That wasn't something that was modeled for me. So of course, there will be instances where I am not calm, where I am dysregulated, and where I feel it necessary to flex my authority and my strength. And I think that in those instances where that does happen, that there is a beautiful opportunity for repair. And to me, repair is, again, going back and not only apologizing, but reconnecting with my child about what happened, and us having the opportunity to air out what exactly we were feeling in those moments and how we can move forward. And also reassuring and affirming the relationship. I don't know about you, but I know for myself, and I can probably speak for others, my peers, that when there was a fight, when you were being disciplined by your parents, there was no reassurance of their love and their care. There was no reassurance that you could talk to them, that they were a safe place. There was no reassurance that whatever activity that you were supposed to do next, that you were still going to be able to do it. There was no reassurance of the relationship. And I think in part of my goal of maintaining and creating secure attachment with my son is reaffirming the relationship, reaffirming that you don't need to tiptoe around me, that you don't need to hide, but we are in a relationship, and that you can trust that if you do something wrong, if you do something that I don't like, if I'm upset with you, or if you're upset with me, we can still come back to each other. There is a mutual place and space for us to do that work with each other. So I think that that is a generational pattern that I, for one, have not experienced. It's something that I think will be essential. And I'm hopeful that my son will be able to see that and experience that and carry that on if he so chooses to have children. Another generational pattern that I think that we need to talk about is this idea of rest not being earned. So for me, it was like, as a kid, let's always go. Whether you're doing homework, whether you're going to tutoring, go to church, having to do chores, like there was no like downtime. There was no we're just gonna lay around today and not do anything. And I think that contributes to one of two things. One, the fact that we are immigrants, or my parents were immigrants to this new country, and it was absolutely necessary for them to work, for them to hustle in order for us to have what we need. And two, proving your worth. I think for a lot of Black people, my dad used to tell us this all the time, that because you are Black, that you have to work twice as hard to get just as much. And I think those are two narratives that have contributed to this idea that rest is a luxury and not a birthright. And I think because of that, we're constantly on the go. We're constantly needing to prove ourselves worthy of rest, right? So we feel like we need to work all these hours in order for us to have a vacation, or that, oh, I just need to clean the house before I can sit down. Or we constantly ask our kids, oh, what did you do from morning? Like, did you read a book? Did you do your homework? Like, we're constantly checking to make sure that they're doing things as opposed to just being. And I think for me anyways, and it's something that I'm learning as well, it's something that I'm hoping to teach my son, that rest is essential. You need to rest. And in this book that I read or listened to called Rest is Resistance, it really talks about how we as people have been taught that we need to earn our rest through capitalism and overconsumption. We constantly feel as though we need to be doing, and we leave little time for us to just be. To be still with our thoughts, to be still with our bodies, and to just simply just rest, right? Like, I think so often we think that as it pertains to a parent-child relationship, that our kids don't have stress, they don't have anything to worry about, they didn't do any work. However, going to school and learning is work. Like, it takes a lot of work to sit for 8 hours or 6 hours a day and be expected to be regulated and to write and to just be in this desk and to behave and to do what you're supposed to do and to speak when you're spoken to. Like, that is work. And for a lot of our kids, coming home should be the place where they're able to rest. But unfortunately, that isn't always the case because there are always expectations of doing more work once they get home. Whether that is they're expected to have their room cleaned in a certain way by a certain time on a certain day, or like other chores and responsibilities that are added onto their day. And I'm not saying that like kids do not need to contribute to the household, the upkeep of the household. Absolutely not. I think you live here. This is your home. You contribute in that way. But what I am saying is that I do think that prioritizing rest and how we rest as a family is essential. So what I mean by that is having a day where your family is at rest or is practicing rest. So whether that means it's a Saturday or a Friday, or depending on what you do for work, that could be a weekday where your family is just together. You're doing something that you guys love, and there is no expectation for something to be completed, right? There's no expectation on you as the parents or the children to complete chores or to complete work. We're just allowing them to be. We're just being. Or the famous one where kids aren't allowed to sleep in on Saturday. I think allowing them the opportunity to just be and to sleep in says that I acknowledge that you had a full week of work, going to school, learning, understanding concepts. You too deserve an opportunity to rest. I do think that that is important. It's an important skill for us to learn and to adopt and to teach our children, because we are not machines. We are not machines, and we are deserving of rest for our bodies and our minds to function at our best. For us, a lot of my peer groups who are striving to do something different, it is difficult and it is challenging. So nothing that I said previously is easy, and it will be hard. And I think it is difficult to chart a new path for multiple reasons, but primarily because it's not something that we see. It isn't something that we model. So we're literally just making up our own blueprint as we go. And not only is that difficult because you don't see it and you don't have something to follow, but it's also difficult because it takes more work. It often takes a lot more work and effort to do something new, right? If you are choosing to parent the way your parents parent, you have a blueprint, you have a model, you have lived experience to tell you how to deal with circumstances. But if you're choosing to do something different, if you're choosing to parent differently, if you're choosing to live out your relationships, whether that's marriage or friendships differently, you don't necessarily have a model for that. So that means that you're going to have to do some research. You're going to have to do some reading. You're going to have to do a lot more self-reflection than you would have if you just followed a path, right? And that's difficult and it's exhausting work. It's really exhausting to do something new. And I will speak for myself that oftentimes I feel like, what is the point in me even doing this? Why am I doing this? Does it even make sense? And is it even worth the time and the effort that I'm putting in when I could just do what I've seen done, right? I know there have been times when I've been frustrated with my kid and just been frustrated with this experience. And I'm just like, you know what? I should just be punitive and I should just do what I've seen done, because at the very least, I knew that it worked to a certain end. There are benefits and there are results from threatening your kid, hitting your kid. There are benefits to it. You do get results from it. And sometimes I'm just like, why don't I just do that? But I'm often reminded and brought back to what are the results that I'm hoping to gain with my child as to why I'm breaking that generational pattern. And I think that is what centers me. That is what keeps me motivated and encouraged. And that's what helped me to continue trying. and to continue reading and to continue doing the research and to continue having conversations with my husband and with my therapist and with my peers and with myself about how can I do this differently and what is my goal at the end of the day? What is the goal for my relationships? What is the goal for my parenting? What is my goal for my marriage? And what is my goal for myself? How do I want to show up in these different areas? And what kind of person do I want to be? That has what has been keeping me, if I'm being honest. And I think that is what will continue to keep many of us when we're doing something that is so different than what we've seen or experienced. I also think that having to confront people and having to confront our family can also be a hindrance in the experience of doing something different, whether that is choosing entrepreneurship, choosing an untraditional career path, whether that's how you live out your life, whether that's choosing not to have children or choosing to have multiple children. Like, there's so many different things that we choose and that we desire for ourselves that just rub up against what we've been taught and what people around us are experiencing and expecting of us, that could almost leave us frozen, can almost leave us not wanting to move forward in fear of not relating to people, in fear of not being accepted, in fear of it constantly being the family joke or the family pun that you are doing something different. And I understand that 100%. And I do empathize with that because we are in that space and that predicament together. But again, I think it is important to really evaluate, why am I doing this? Why is it so important for me to break this pattern? What am I hoping to gain as a result of doing something different? And constantly reminding yourself that and bringing yourself back to that place is perfect and beautiful motivation to keep trying. Because none of us know, like, we really don't know what the result will be, but we are hoping that through the research that we can recreate those results and those experiences for ourselves, for our families, and for our children. My last point on generational patterns and treading a new path is knowing that as you do something different, you are using a different lens, you are using a different reality, and you are displaying love and acceptance and care differently. Are the people that are receiving that, so in my case, my child who is receiving that, will experience life differently. So I think, like, if there is nothing else, that is a top reason for me, knowing that what I am giving him, how I am allowing him to experience his childhood, will ultimately change how he experiences life and the lens in which he chooses to love, the lens that he chooses to interact with his peers, how he interacts with God and his relationship with God, and how he will formulate his faith, the ways in which that he relates to me and his dad. Like, choosing to do something different will change how our kids see and experience life. So one thing I want to leave with you today, something for you to consider and think about, is what is your biggest fear of doing something different? What is your biggest struggle with completing or accomplishing a goal or a task, or just doing something that you've never done before? What is your biggest struggle with that? And who is the critic that you are hearing in your head and in your heart that is causing you to be stagnant, that is causing you to be fearful, that is causing you to second guess all of your decisions? I want you to think about that and really consider your why, and consider what is motivating you, or what could possibly motivate you to do something different. I will talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Melanin Combos. Melanin Combos is directed and produced by Nikita Buckner, editing, audio, and video production by Tamwa Ladajo. If you'd like to support Melanin Combos, share this episode with a friend or visit our website in the show notes. We are amplifying Black voices and creating a sisterhood of mom friends.